Bill. Chris Hipkins.
Thank you very much, Mr Speaker, and I'm happy to take a call on the Student Loan Scheme Amendment Bill number 2, and I can say to the member who has just resumed his seat that I too had a student loan, and I too have paid that off, and I did take the responsibility of paying back my student loan very seriously, and I was very pleased. It was a great relief when I paid my loan back off, because it meant my pay went up every week because the money was no longer being taken off me, and so I was very pleased about that. I want to respond, however, to some of the comments that the member David Bennett raised earlier on, because I think he completely misunderstands the way tertiary education in New Zealand is funded. When he talked about the large percentage of tertiary education funding that goes to student support, what he did, and therefore argued that the institutions were being underfunded, what he didn't seem to acknowledge was that the majority of money that is tagged as student support actually goes to the institutions. It's called student fees. Student loans, the form of student loans known as, that pay for student fees, that goes to the institutions. That is the way we fund the tertiary institutions, and a significant proportion of their income comes from student fees, which is tagged as student support, but is money that goes to the universities and to the polytechs and so on. So to argue that because such a large proportion of our tertiary education budget goes into student support, therefore the institutions are underfunded, suggests that the member hasn't done his homework and hasn't made any effort to actually understand how tertiary education funding in New Zealand works. Now, the Labour Party is supporting this bill because we do believe that people have an obligation to repay their student loans, but we also believe that those people who are able to hide their income in trusts and in other complicated mechanisms shouldn't be able to get away with not repaying their loans. It would be blatantly unfair if someone on a low income, say doing a cleaning job, had to make all of their mandatory student loan repayments, while someone on a much higher income who was able to disguise that income didn't have to make the same level of mandatory repayments simply because they were better off in the first place and able to disguise their income. So this bill tightens that up, and I think that that's very important. So it broadens the definition of income to include incomes from trusts, companies, superannuation schemes and the like. And I think that's a very fair change because it means that people aren't able to hide where their money's coming from, and it means that everybody gets treated the same when it comes to making student loan repayments. The second key change that it makes is it allows information sharing between customs and the IRD so that the IRD can have access to the contact details of overseas-based borrowers who are in serious default. Now, this is probably a more controversial aspect to the bill because one of the reasons that we know graduates go overseas is that they want to get away from their student loan debt. Now, I've done a lot of work on the student loan scheme over many, many years, including working on the policy of introducing interest-free student loans under the time of the previous Labour government. And I do encourage anybody who is going overseas to make sure they make arrangements while they're away to keep their student loan repayments up to date, because a number of people unexpectedly have been stung with very large penalty repayments when they return to New Zealand, and it wasn't necessarily that they did so deliberately. It was simply the fact that, they, I guess, took the opportunity once they'd finished their studies to go overseas to do an OE, and then things might have changed. They might have met someone while they were overseas. They might have got a job. They stay away overseas longer than they anticipated, and when they come back, in some cases they might have been away for 4 or 5 years. They might have even got married and had kids in that time. They come back to New Zealand, and suddenly they try and get a job. They find that they've stung with this massive bill for student loan repayment penalties because they haven't kept up to date with it while they're away overseas. That's something that we do want to avoid happen. And so I guess the sharing of information so that people can be contacted and I guess made to be aware of all of their obligations to repay their loans, that's probably a good thing. But we shouldn't overlook the reason why people get into default while they're away overseas in the first place. Many, many times it's unintentional. And also, I guess, we shouldn't overlook the fact that problems with student debt are one of the reasons why students feel compelled to leave New Zealand in the first place. Of course, one of the key reasons is if they've got a large student loan balance and they can earn more money by leaving the country, they may feel that they're actually in a better position to repay their loan by leaving the country. So what's the crux of that debate, therefore? How do we get New Zealanders earning more money? How do we get higher paying jobs in New Zealand so that it is not necessary for people to leave the country in order to earn enough money to repay their student loans. So I think that that's a very important point. Now, while the Select Committee has raised some issues around privacy, or at the Select Committee, privacy issues were raised, and I understand from members on the Select Committee that they have been reassured that those issues have been addressed. The Labour Party has supported many other measures to crack down on those who are not meeting their obligations to repay their student loans, although we don't agree with many of the measures that the government have taken with respect to restricting access to student loans, with respect to other more punitive measures that, in our view, restrict access to tertiary education. I just want to check, Mr. Speaker, that this is a split call, and I'm going to get a.
No, you've got a 10-minute.
No, it's a split. It is a split call. So if I've used my 5 minutes, I just wanted to make sure that.
My apologies. Yes, you have more than.
Okay. Well, I'll finish. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
So you better stop them. I did ask, and I put my.
I nodded.
That meant 10 minutes. My apology. I'm calling the Catherine Delahunty.
Mr. Speaker.